Now, Sale is not going to get that deal, but he does have an interesting deal where, because he is a publicly listed company, he can issue debt, not at negative cost like an insurance company. Like the really great comparison, if he were to convert the software business to an insurance company business, then it would be just like Berkshire. Because then you're using negative cost of capital leverage to buy an asset. And the reason Bitcoin, it's not exactly like a portfolio of cash flowing companies, not at all like that. So that comparison doesn't work. But in the new age, Bitcoin does have the potential, and I'm not here yet, but I hear people who speak this way. It could be the only asset, right? That you need, right? It becomes this self-sustaining asset that everyone converts their fiat into, and the idea of the ownership of other assets starts to diminish as they get tokenized. And I don't know. I don't think it actually works, but I'll acknowledge that it's not the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I do think that I have a different view on Bitcoin. I've stopped
big chunk of Tiger, and we didn't redeem all of it. We kept a stub piece because he was our largest living alumni. And at UNC, 58%. His portfolio was up 58% when everybody else was going down. And then 2001 was worse, and 2002 was even worse. But he couldn't stay. Everyone was leaving. Everyone was quitting. And that's, again, human beings do two things really well. We buy what we wish we would have bought, and we sell what we're about to need. And we are spectacular. Anyway, so let's talk jobs. I never cheat. The thing I love about this is I don't have to do any work. I don't have to do any work. You do all the hard work. You get all the charts. You prep all the hard questions. And all I have to do is respond. And I do. One thing that's funny, though, is I love when people, all you do is randomly talk. There are no planned comments. I'm like, no, I have no sound bites. This is not a soundbite show. This is a let's talk about real time. And I see they get criticism of, you're not giving me. Yeah, no. And I think a couple of things. One, jobs numbers are backward looking, right? So we're talking about December, which was pretty good, right? We all traveled for the holidays. You went skiing and it was probably pretty busy. And I went to San Francisco to see my son, and airplanes were full, and the restaurants we went to were full. And, shopping was not like awesome, like off the charts awesome, but, trees were filled with presents underneath, and shoppers shopped, and stores had to hire temporary labor. It will be interesting to see what happens. And the thing I said in terms of the revision. So, you and I have talked about the birth-death ratio, and look, I think the jobs number is a fabrication, right? It uses this technology from 60, 70 years ago that's just not applicable today. We know exactly how many people got jobs and how much they paid in taxes. We know that, right? I mean, it's all technology now. But yet we still use this silly idea of, well, at this point in economic expansion, there should be this many companies. And if you say that the expansion is, 13 years old, instead of the guy who's, he and Eric have become these rock stars in the area of, ETF approval speculation. But James was saying that, or they were talking about, ETF approval and what's going to happen and all this good stuff. And, Scott asked the question, which platform do you think is going to have the biggest impact? And they're like, well, Fidelity, if Fidelity gets approved, they're vertically integrated, so they could, push the ETF to their clients. Like, yeah, that's good. Schwab, because Schwab, is where a lot of RIAs, independent RIAs, custody their assets, and they, facilitate ETFs. Yeah, that's big. The thundering herd, baby. Merrill and UBS, which have been, no, you can't do anything. Like UBS, nothing that's related to this. And Merrill, it's even worse. Like if you made your money in crypto, you can't even be a client at Merrill. So both of them are going to have to unleash the dogs, and they control more money than people understand, because the boomers, that's where it is, right? The boomers have story, and I'm sure there are people who quibble with certain elements of it, but I just thought it was awesome.
All right, I wanna get your take on we also one of the, I guess, last stories of the week that we have here is I want to do a check-in on the Fed's policy around quantitative tightening. So we got a little bit more details from the December meeting, and we are now the Fed apparently, like some Fed officials are mulling an end to balance sheet cuts. So basically the quote here I'm looking at
Shocking, you
Reuters.
say? No,
I know.
Michael,
Yeah.
shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking that the buyer of last resort would stop selling bonds. That's just shocking to me.
Mm.
In a
So
world of
here's
$1 trillion deficits and no buyers for our bonds. So,
well, you're right.
we talked
Yeah.
about this. I told you that in 2007, the Bank of Japan said no more. We're not going to buy any more bonds. When they were at 100, they were at debt to GDP was 100. Now debt to GDP is 220. In every governance structure, in every military, you need generalists. You need generals. You need the visionaries, right? The ones that are the warlords. They're the conquering heroes. Okay. Then you need the strategists, the visionaries. Then you need the not the tacticians. Shoot. Yeah, no, then needed tacticians. The commanders that actually, move the troops and command the prefects. Then you need the guardians, the actual logisticians. That's it. The logisticians that actually get stuff. They make sure that the fuel is where the tanks are and not 2 miles behind. And they make sure the food doesn't run out for the soldiers. And that's where the problems are. To your point, the operational problems, because the visionary isn't thinking about that. The general ain't thinking about, I got to have food for my troops. He just says, hey, go take that hill. The guy who's appointed by the president says, oh, yeah, I'm going to cut rates. You betcha. I'm going to keep you out of recession. Oh, yeah, I'm so dovish. Of course he's going to say that. Now, the fact that it's going to be really hard to do that in an environment of massive deficits and nobody buying bonds. And look, Rob Arnott, he was just on a show that I was on, I think yesterday. And he talks about this a lot, that the reason the bond market hasn't completely collapsed is because the boomers, right? 65 to 85-year-old people, they buy bonds. They just do. And, the older you are in that cohort, the more bonds you buy. And so there is a fixed bid. And I used to say this all the time that, when I 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I knew the writing was on the wall that there was going to be this big imbalance, I said, there's no law